Back, apparently Bush W43 came out of his Utrecht tavern long enough to see the shadow of his presidency, and he realized we've still got 18 months left of winter. While the current president was taking a crack at the previous administration at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, watch this.
A few weeks ago, Dick Cheney says he thinks I'm the worst president of his lifetime. Which is interesting because I think Dick Cheney is the worst president of my lifetime.
That's kind of funny, you have to admit. President Bush le Deux took to a private stage on the same night in Vegas in front of a room full of disgruntled Jewish donors to tell the crowd his thoughts on ISIS strategy. Quote, "In order to be an effective president, when you say something, you have to mean it. You got to kill him." And reportedly said about the Iran nuke deal, "You think the Middle East is chaotic now? Imagine what it looks like for our grandchildren. That's how Americans should view the deal." Guess who's joining me tonight? It's Pete Hegseth, CEO of Concerned Veterans for America. Welcome back, Pete.
Thanks for having me.
So I thought this was very interesting. This president has been seen as a very good ex-president because he sort of minds his own business. He does his painting, and he sort of ponders the past in peace. What made him come out of his shell?
It's got to be one of two things, because it was quite intentional. It was a private gathering, but with the Republican Jewish coalition, but clearly remarks are going to get out. One of two things. One is just at his breaking point. Here we are 6 years in. We're about to make a strategic blunder in Iran. He looks at ISIS in Iraq and his legacy and says someone's got to say something. But a lot of people are already saying something. So I think it could also be the fact that, hey, Jeb is looking at running, and someone can make that critique. And maybe it's part of a gradual entering into the public space to make that critique. It's ironic, though. Wouldn't it be ironic that W. Bush would be a surrogate for his brother as a positive influence on foreign policy?
I don't think he's going to be a surrogate for his brother. I think this is what's happening. I think you're right about, the Jeb factor. I think that's what's bringing him out. I mean, there are so many things that could have been the straw to break the camel's back. I think he wants to get what he has to say out on the record now, and then sort of let it dissipate before Jeb really enters, because I don't think he's going to be a surrogate in that campaign. I really don't.
So I think that's a very fair and good point, and it underscores the problem Jeb's going to have on foreign policy. How does he articulate a robust, strong juxtaposition to Obama without falling into the trap of looking just like his brother? And so maybe that is get out front of it, but either way, he's going to have that. And if they make a forceful critique and say, well, the Bush presidency may not have been perfect, but we handed over a stable Iraq. We were never going to let Iran get a bomb. We were always had good relations with Israel. Putin wasn't acting out the way he is. So maybe you thought it was bad then because the Iraq war was unpopular, but really an extension of that philosophy would have created a much different world. So it's going to be a blending for Jeb, and his brother's going to be in the background no matter what.
Yeah, but it's not like his Russia policy was masterful. I think Putin was going to do this regardless of who was president of the United States.
I don't know that we can determine that. I mean,
I don't think we can.
But he made a calculation of the Russian reset. He made a calculation of the way Obama was handling a lot of other things, the way he was more welcome to sort of negotiate and talk and discuss and not likely to engage.
Yes, but Obama's ineptitude still doesn't negate the fact that Putin was a psycho. Even back during the Bush administration, the fact that President Bush didn't see that, I think that is a weakness. That doesn't mean that the Obama policy on Russia hasn't been weak as well. It's been awful.
He did peer into his eyes. And
he did into his soul. Yes,
he did.
How lucky. But then, I can't remember Bush's dog's name, but it was like, Patches or Baxter. Barney. And Putin was like, yeah, I've got the Russian counterpart that's much faster and better looking and better bred. It's like, eat a bag, Vlad. All right, so was it Iran? Was that what roused him from the studio?
I think so. He sees Iran as a fundamental strategic reorientation of the Middle East. They tried that with Iraq. In fact, I believe that the surge direction where it really could have been. Today we've got two options: strongmen or Islamists of one color or another in the Middle East. And what frustrates me about Iraq is that with the surge, you could have had a quasi-stable, quasi-democratic ally in the region that could have stood as an example of what's possible. Not perfect, but possible. Instead, you have these two polar opposites. And at one end of that polar opposite, you have radical Islamics in the Iranian regime about to get a bomb. And he's stepping in and saying, you messed up Iraq and brought us ISIS. Now you're going to give the Iranians a bomb. And that fundamentally rechanges the map in that region, because he knows the Saudis really well. He knows the Israelis really well. He knows they're going to have to do something to counterbalance it. So I do think people will charge politics. I think this is a guy who really believed what he did, who was really invested in what he did.
I believe that too. I believe that he's got good intentions, but I think that that he hosed us almost as much as Obama. I think he really set up Obama for failure, and I'm sorry to say that, but
well, no, that's a very fair opinion. The left's going to say that on foreign policy.
The left's not going to say that about Obama.
But the left will say that about Bush's foreign policy.
Yeah.
If pre-surge, I would have to give that to you.
Yeah.
Having been on the ground and watched what could have happened and what Obama gave away, it is not on the footstep of George W. Bush. That's on the footstep of a president who was more interested in a campaign promise than in finishing a very difficult and very complex situation.
Structurally changed the Middle East in a way that a weak president only screwed up for possibly generations. Pete Hegseth,
thank you.
Thank you so much for
very
being
much.
here. I really appreciate it. Always. And Pete and I will be on Outnumbered tomorrow on Fox News Channel at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific.
Be there.
Excellent. I know I will.